Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Want to make sure everything is okay. Seems good. Please make sure you are subscribed to all three channels. Next one we'll try to get up on Heart's Own and talk about the spiritual side of things. Actually, I would do a spiritual talk on there now, but it's a little touchy subject, and we want to keep Heart's Own light side, because we need to have a light refuge away from all the darkness that we see around us.
We do, but also at the same time, these things need to be discussed, so we'll figure out something.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we always got to do our best to let people know of what's going on when maybe they don't have a real good understanding, and maybe they're actually literally walking into danger without really understanding how dangerous the situation truly is. So we see 700,000 people without clean water as the fallout from the Nova Kakhovka flooding mounts. This is after that dam in southern Ukraine was destroyed in that big whodunit, with one side saying the other side did and the other side says no, that side did. Yeah, well, regardless, you have, immense areas flooded away. You have obviously crops flooded away, homes, now saturated, probably growing black mold, unlivable, and you got tons of people without clean drinking water. A total humanitarian disaster. But you know what? This world is a humanitarian disaster. This is part of the big reveal.
It is, everything is just coming up so we can see it.
It is, completely displaced communities. This is alongside the Dnipro River, which is an interesting one because, many people have mentioned this by name when it comes to prophecies, from our own Alois Erlmeiler to Nostradamus to others. The Dnipro is one that's a very historical river and figures in many of these prophecies that we've talked about. And of course, that battle is ongoing, and there's all the threats and bluster that it could just explode at any moment. And then you have people that think, no, we'll never have another WW with a number after it. But that would be really naivete to think along those lines, just because it hasn't happened in your lifetime, whatever that lifetime is, even 30, 40, 50 years. It does happen. It happens on a regular basis. And again, it all depends on where you've been. If you've been in the U.S., you haven't seen fighting on your soil. No, but if you grew up in Iraq or maybe Syria or maybe Afghanistan, you've known a lot of fighting, and in many African countries and other places as well. It's been what you've grown up with.
Yeah, and isn't that sad that so many children really have grown up with just nothing but fighting, nothing but fear? They haven't had a chance to really explore what is childhood about. That's not a world that we want to continue to live in. We want to change it.
And here we see farmers banding together against the CO2 pipeline project in South Dakota. South Dakota, again, has one of the governors that has seemed to be the most for the people. But is she going to stop the eminent domain that is being threatened to take place and it apparently is ongoing here in her state of South Dakota, as they want to develop a CO2 pipeline? Oh, that'll be good for years, in the future. And it's going to help so many people. Yeah. No trespassing, no surveying, no pipelines, no eminent domain for private gain. Yeah, because what they're doing is telling people, hey, we're going to give you so much money for your farm, for your home, for your property. And if you don't take it, we're just going to take it from you. And this is just wrong. But hey, governments have done wrong things. They called the Native Americans savages and exterminated them or herded them onto little plots of land that stunk.
And who's the savage, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it wasn't us, we don't really tend to think about it. When it's us, Oh, then it's finally a problem. But then when it's us, then it's too late because, we're just another brick in this wall of domination.
Well, the more we can learn to shift our perspective and see it from another point of view, the more whole we can become and the better we can make the world we live in.
So an Iowa-based company describes plans to build a massive carbon capture pipeline across 5 Midwestern states in the letter 1,400-mile pipeline transport carbon dioxide under high pressure produced by ethanol and biofuel refineries for burial in North Dakota. So what we have to realize too, and they know this, that the technologies that are in use right now won't be around in just a little while because we are going to have such a rapid growth in high tech. It's going to spin people's heads. We've been going at a crawl, even though it might seem like, technology has increased rapidly. It hasn't increased rapidly compared to what it's going to in the next 10 years. It's literally going to leave people's heads spinning. And really all this is, again, just another control grab. And some of these are big farms, like 1,400 acres. People that do have a lot of assets, maybe they're also in a lot of debt. And, they're losing their livelihood, sometimes for generations, just gone. But this is what history shows. Again, we are living in a feudal society. We've always been living in this type of society where the lords and the ladies are the ones that don't care what they do to the average person to maintain their status up at towards the top of the apparent pyramid, that is controlling everything.
No, their pampering is the most important thing to them.
Yeah, they're all about ego, and whenever we see them, again, the politicians smiling for the photo ops and coming rushing together, powdering their nose and etc. Yeah, it's all ego. It's not for you. It's never for you. And this is what they bank on. They bank that politics is going to attract people that can be convinced to join the power structure in one way, shape, or means. And when you get to a certain level, they invite you in, and if you don't go along with it, then something happens and you're not going to be really high up in the power structure anyway. And here you see, this is Matt Rosendale, and he's from the state of Montana, a representative, meeting with Tom Van Hoos. Now, this is the owner of Highwood Creek Outfitters. 20 armed IRS agents raided his store in Great Falls, Montana, earlier this week. What did they want? They just wanted the 4473 forms. They took all the forms, none of which contained any financial information. So now the IRS has access to the forms with highly sensitive personal details of every customer who purchased a firearm. So this should give you the heads up that the IRS is not working for the U.S. citizen. In fact, excuse me, guys, as they attack my throat chakra here, the IRS is truly working for the power structure. It would be more accurate to say that the IRS is working for BRICS, because the BRICS nations are the ones that are going to have more power after, say 2025 than the NATO nations. But in reality, you could say, the IRS is working more directly for Uncle Klaus and the rest of, that whole bunch of, I was going to say something really negative, but, I'll just leave it for you guys to fill the description in.
That's fun. Fill in the blank. Absolutely.
Yeah, armed IRS agents. What do they want to know? Who's got firearms? And we wondered when those millions and millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of rounds that the IRS had ordered all those years back, what they were for. Of course we know what they're for now.
Well, with the reality, this isn't going to anyone besides the, I don't want to say it, PPC. I'm a little dyslexic, but you guys get it. That's where this information is going, so that they have a track record of everyone who could possibly do harm.
Yeah, and we were talking about camps yesterday, and you know, we were talking about how the Czech president was talking about camps for people that are of Russian nationality. But the reality is, what we've seen is the camps on U.S. soil are really for us. They're for people that are current U.S. citizens. And we do see that it's going to be a conglomerate. There will be some native soldiers, let's say, but there will also be soldiers from some of the BRICS nations that will be watching the camps that are here in the USA. This is part of that big picture, as what was done to the Native Americans by the Europeans will now be done to those of us that grew up here in the United States by the incoming power structure, which is already in place. And again, so many of the laws that you've seen put in place, they're to give you that fine dining ware experience in your own country. You ever wonder what it's like to, the Beatles had a song, Living in the USSR. You remember that? Well, and then you had Rammstein, who we're all living in America. Well, again, we're all going to be living in the fine dining ware country as far as the power structure, the cameras everywhere. There might be a little 2-lane highway going through a town of 100 people somewhere in Wyoming, and there's going to be cameras all over that intersection.
Definitely, indeed.
So we have a waterspout came ashore in Clearwater Beach, Florida, sent 2 to the hospital. This is kind of rare. Two people, a 63-year-old man and a woman said to be 70 from Kansas, minor injuries. They were just basically on vacation. We wish them well, of course, and speedy recovery. Now, 8 earthquakes in 4 weeks, and I'm looking at this saying, I know this area, and it's because this is where I used to live. Yeah, this is very close to Clyde. It's West Canton. And so this is an old fault line that now appears to be reactivated. And, some of our friends that live on the reservation over there in Cherokee land were talking about these ancient fault lines that will become active in these times. And we've felt them being there, and we heard them too, because I've heard different landslides that were triggered by movement. And so now, literally this is about 3 miles from where I was staying for a while in North Carolina. And this is about 150 miles away from Charlotte. It's to the west of Asheville area. Yeah, 8. And, there's also 2 interesting quakes in Virginia today, too, which are a little bit farther up the fault line is what I'm feeling. The Appalachians are an ancient mountain range. And, man, there is a lot of beings living in the Appalachians. Absolutely, there are things that we would call Bigfoot. I had so many encounters with people that had seen Bigfoot in that area. And also legends of the giants, like Judah Kala, and the little people. Oh my gosh, the Appalachian area is really fun, honestly.
I bet it is. I mean, that energy, just looking at it remotely, is very curious. For some reason, the stone people keep showing up in my head. I don't know about that.
Interesting. Yeah, lots of elemental. And this is Frank Hoogerbeets, who did hit that big one that happened earlier in Turkey. So he likes to look at the astrological alignments, and there is an interesting alignment occurring right now. And so he's saying that seismic activity is likely to occur above average during the next 2 weeks, with the emphasis on the last week of June. And we have seen some interesting things. There's a 3.9 over in France after that 4.8 that the USGS said happened, which some sources said it was a whole degree higher, 5.8 over in France. Very unusual. There are definitely quakes in unusual places. There was another 6.0 over in Tonga, so there's been 3 above 6 there in just a matter of a couple of days. The thing overall is the actual number seems a little lower than average. There's been periods where it was quite a bit lower than average without major activities. So it feels like there's a strong building going on. And, if I was a betting man, I actually, could really go out on a limb and say that I do think within, the next 12 to 18 months, I'm really feeling the chances are high for Cascadia, San Andreas, and New Madrid all to occur within the next 12 to 18 months. And really, could it happen as early as Frank is saying? It feels like it could. It could happen any time. Although I think the fall is going to be more challenging with that type of stuff is what I'm feeling, and that's just feeling. And I trust Cindy way more than I trust myself in her deciphering, because I get more impressions or sometimes pictures where she gets literal conversations that come through. But what I do think is what we're seeing right now with these temperatures that are very high in some areas, and at the same time we still do have record lows going, and we have record snow in certain areas, and yet we do have fires, as you see this unprecedented fires rage across the entire boreal forest. Enormous carbon penalty, no let up in the fires. And people, they're coming out of the woodwork. This guy is director of Climate Emergency Institute, co-author of Unprecedented Crime, published on Climate Change, Sustainable Development, Biodiversity. There's people like this. I mean, they're everywhere. This gentleman over here, Thomas Rice. They are just screaming at the top of their lungs about climate change. So we understand, and I've even put things like, are you directly on Klaus's payroll? Do you report to Klaus? Who is it that you're checking in with? Are you checking in with Bill Gates, or where is your allegiance directly? Who do you directly report to, basically? Because it's obvious that they are just doing the next thing. This is just like when The Plague Upon the Land came out. Now, The Plague Upon the Land, some thought, that it was all an illusion, but we got that it always was real to a degree. But of course, it was all about a purpose, and that purpose it should be very, very evident to people out there now. And, like this gentleman I don't follow, yet he's in my feed constantly. And 20 more like him constantly in the feed, talking about we have to obviously, shift to that CBDC that is all about carbon and your carbon footprint, because, the end is now. And this one right here says, January, February, March 2024, we will all feel like awakening on a different alien planet. Laughing wise. Yeah, because when you look at it, everything is supposed to be so much hotter, but we've seen them, and this is actually quoting Tropical Tidbits, which has been used by like everybody over the years. But what we have seen is the data that they often give us later on down the line, after it's not in anybody's mind anymore, will be refuted directly and proven to be not accurate. This happens time and time again, and some people don't understand what we're talking about. Like, there was a question saying, fourth density, you're saying Hitler's in fourth density, but then what if we go to fourth density? So you're saying I'm going to hell. It's like, if anybody's ever listened to anything we've talked about fourth density, it's so vast. When you say lower fourth density, that's a very different place than mid fourth density or upper realms of fourth density. Like, the higher fourth density is thought to be, the Buddhists have described it as the heavenly realms, because it is a place of dreams come true in so many ways, where the lower fourth density is recognized to be the hellish realms. The problem is when people don't really, and this is exactly what they're banking on, you're going to glance at this and think, sky is falling. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that's why they're taking away our cars. That's why they're going to not let us burn wood. That's why they're not going to let us burn natural gas. It's all because it's runaway climate change. And, we're so screwed. We have to do this right now. That's what they're banking on, is that you won't look any deeper.
Right. They really need us to be looking on the surface and just taking their word for it. And unfortunately, many people do. Many people just look at these things and they take it at face value and they adopt it, that it's their own, and they go forward with an untruth. And really, they're just helping to feed the agenda, but they don't know any better. And I don't know, it's just something that's so horrifically wrong with our culture. I think in a very vast way, these things are going on way too much, where people are just, and they're too busy, and understand that the control structure, they do this very deliberately. I mean, they get people working and on the hamster wheel, so they don't have time to look any deeper. They just see a headline and they're like, oh, okay. And they adopt it and they go on their way and they fulfill what the controllers want them to.
Your moment of doom. It's too late. The events of the last few months will make it likely that 2024 will be a 1.5 degrees Celsius hotter than pre-industrial levels. And again, there's going to be those that don't listen close enough to us. They're going to say, oh, so you're pushing climate change. It's like, you really want to say, no, you idiot. Pay attention. Hello. When people start saying, oh, you're pushing this. And here's one of the biggest things people do. They'll say, well, don't get me wrong. I'm a big fan. But, I can't trust you. Yeah, that's one of the techniques that's really used by the trolls and by the power structure itself, is to start off with a don't get me wrong, or I'm a big fan. No, you're not. You've never looked at our channel before. It's part of what they do. And part of what they do is just foster this mentality of you don't have enough time. They want society to be that way, that anybody that is going to have any impact on society is not going to have the time to really look deep, because you're just struggling to survive. And the ones that maybe have time to look deep, they're intense, living on the side of the street, or they're wealthy enough to be part of the structure itself. And, again, what happens with so many of the MDs is, by the time you get out of school, you owe so much. You owe a mansion mortgage on your education. And, then when you're given quotas by the, big FARMA, you got to meet those quotas, because right away you have a mortgage, a mansion mortgage on your schooling that's going to take a long time to pay off. You have no choice. You have to succeed. So thus you might have to see 6 people in an hour and give everybody 8 minutes and spend 2 minutes running from one room to another. How are you going to know anything about anybody? You can't, and it's not the point that you could. That's the big thing. This is what the system does. TikTok mentality is what they want for everybody. You got 3 minutes to rule the world. You got 60 seconds. Give it to us in 60 seconds. That's all we have. You're never going to get anywhere. How are you ever going to learn how to meditate if you don't have an attention span of more than 60 seconds to 3 minutes? It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that's what they bank on. They bank on this. They have built this society knowing it's going to lead to decreased IQs, decreased perceptions and perceptibility to see everything that's going on. They're not going to give you the time. And it's all about tax you to death and, keep you running on that wheel so you don't notice that you do have shackles around you and you are tied at the neck with your hands tied behind one, worker bee to another.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because observing is one of the most important things we could do, is to stop and look at ourselves and see what's going on and address issues that we might have. But if the controllers are just leading everyone around, kind of by their nose and not allowing them to have time to stop and look and see, they're going to do whatever they have to do to make sure their agenda is fulfilled. And they really they have no qualms doing so. They have no qualms, no morals, no nothing. It's just, make sure the ends justify the means. As long as we get it done, just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to thank everybody that in the past has prayed for one of our family members that has passed on, and we've asked for prayers for that person. And, it's just another sad situation, as this was a person that, we talked to and knew us and knew what we did. Actually, it's somebody that on the early days of the channel, I want to say this person was one of the first 1,000 subscribers. And when I was in Florida, even, I had sessions with this person. And then they came down with cancer, and they opted, because of family pressure, to go the normal route, even though they watched everything that we did and everything we've shared and everything. And I sent her so many links to, check out this person, check out that person, other people that know way more than we do, about cancer specifically, and diet and nutrition and how to beat it naturally. Because of family pressure, they went the normal route. And that included, when the plague upon the land was here, of doing a certain thing. And so, they have passed on at a young age now. And it's just sad. It's just really, really sad, because, we know it doesn't have to be the case. But again, peer pressure and family pressure, when the family doesn't really get the bigger picture, as well as the patient got it, but the patient didn't want to disappoint or get the family mad at them and ostracize them, because it's a lonely thing when you're facing a long, slow death, and you want people to be there for you, and sometimes you'll make decisions because you're afraid they're going to move away from you in the time that you need support, and that's really, really sad.
Oh, I know. And there is no doubt that there was very much love between the family members. And what saddens me so much is the family member that was pushing for a certain thing to be done. They were doing it out of fear that there could be loss. So acting with her best understanding and her fullest heart, she was like, I want you to get these treatments because I'm afraid if you don't, I'm going to lose you. I mean, how heartbreaking is that when people are really afraid for their loved one and they push these things on them, and it's that thing that they push that loses the family member. It's just heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, or accelerates it. But when we look at the natural way of doing things, is in our minds, it's always best, because again, some sources will tell you the number one killer is the medical system, and I think those sources are the most accurate. It is the system, and then even the system itself will tell you that it's the second or third most deadly thing there is, and depending on the stats that you're looking at. So it's really, really sad that this happens, but it happens constantly. And we have another family member too. So there's two ones that were dear to us that definitely feel we definitely feel the loss, and it's just really sad. And I do feel that there's going to be unfortunately an awful lot more of that going on in the months ahead, because when we look to graphs with these peaks and these valleys, I think we haven't seen even close to a peak yet when it comes to everything that we're talking about that's happened over the last 2.5 years or so.
I know, it's just something, and it's been about 2 years, and this person, we really advised against doing certain things, and they're gone. That's sad.
Yeah, and again, we're not experts. We're just sharing what we've seen, and I've personally seen a lot of illness because of different positions that I've been in, where I was working with very, very sick people over periods of time. And again, when we do the energy work and all, of course, science won't verify anything, even though you can see things like Kirlian photography, and you could see pathologies when you look at the aura and you look at chakras, and you see, when we're talking about cancer, it usually appears as more of a grayish area, a dull area. And, of course, there is debate over, the clinical definition of it and how you should proceed with it. Again, there's been so many that have been ridiculed as quacks that have given alternative therapies that have seen magnificent successes with people being told they have 2 to 4 months to live. And no, they're here 10, 20, 30 years later when they go the alternative route. Every now and then, people can survive doing the route that is recommended, but that's from a strong will to survive, and that's that higher self saying, no, we have a lot more work to do. You're not going now. And again, we can overcome things that the system will tell us is insurmountable. The whole way they do things with giving a diagnosis, it's like, they're giving you gnosis, knowledge that you're gonna die. Just look at all these terms that they use, as we talked about English with the spelling, writing in cursive. Again, everything about this society is all black magic in so many ways, because they understand we're always co-creating our reality. So they're always sowing the seeds of darkness in everything around us. So we have to counteract that.
Mm-hmm. And, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you do end up sick and you want to try some alternative modalities, and say you go search online, the first thing you're going to see is this thing is used for this, but there's no true science behind it. Every single natural modality that there is out there, there's always a warning next to it. And you can't tell me that there's not enough money out there to really put these things to the test and give them the green light. The problem with the green light with these is they're very cheap, and you can heal yourself and you can help heal other people. But gosh, when you get sick and you want to take a natural route, you get flooded with so much information, because there's a gazillion different ways you can go, and there's a lot of different ways to do things. There's a different modalities that need to be used. Sometimes if you're going a natural route, you have to do things in a certain order, and they do not put this information out there to make it easy on people. And that should be a really big eye-opener.
Absolutely. As you see these two guys, a little unlikely friendship, what beautiful faces, trust in nature. Again, nature has a cure for anything and everything in this very, very unnatural world. And your body is actually imbued with amazing creative power and healing power. You just have to let it do its thing. Again, there are so many out there you could look to, and I'm bringing this up because with the prevalence too of these rapid aggressive cancers that are out there, it's likely that every single person listening to this knows somebody that has or will or is going through that scenario. So, again, do your due diligence, utilize the web, and go do some researching for yourselves. As always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you there. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.